What if the loudest people in the room are actually the weakest ones? Here's an uncomfortable truth most of us never stop to consider. The real fight in life isn't out there with other people. It's the one happening quietly inside you. Think about how much energy we burn trying to get others to approve of us. We explain ourselves. We defend our choices. We chase understanding from people who were never going to give it. And here's the strange part. The harder we chase that approval, the more our inner calm slips away. Real power doesn't start the day you win an argument or prove someone wrong. It starts the day you stop performing for an audience and begin quietly shaping who you are without needing anyone to clap. Think about a tree. Its roots dig deeper into the earth without making a single sound. No mountain has ever announced how tall it is before it grew that way. Your biggest personal shift will happen the same way. Away from noise, away from other people's opinions, away from every distraction pulling at your attention. So today, let's talk about something most people overlook completely. The discipline of turning inward and embracing quiet. When you stop scattering your energy across pointless conversations, constant comparisons, and unnecessary conflict, something shifts. Life starts falling into place on its own. Chaos gets replaced with peace. Confusion turns into clarity. And pressure, that constant feeling of not enough, gets replaced with real purpose. Look at how much the world is pulling at you right now. Every ping on your phone, every stranger's opinion, every bit of criticism, every expectation someone else has for your life. All of it tugs your mind in a different direction. And most of the time, you don't even notice it happening. Your focus gets divided among 100 things that never deserved your attention in the first place. This is exactly why so many people feel completely drained, even on days they barely did any physical work. It's not the tasks that exhaust them. It's the mental noise. Silence becomes your shield here. It protects the one resource you can never get back once it's gone, your energy. Choosing quiet doesn't make you weak. It makes you selective. You start realizing something important. Not every argument deserves a reply. Not every misunderstanding needs you to explain yourself. Not every insult is worth your attention. The people with real strength aren't the ones who always have a sharp comeback ready. They're the ones who understand that their peace of mind is worth more than winning a pointless debate. Picture yourself holding a bucket full of clean water. Every needless argument spills a little out. Every attempt to impress someone pours out a bit more. Every time you compare your life to someone else's, more water splashes onto the ground. Eventually, you're left wondering why you feel so empty inside. The answer is actually simple. Your focus has been leaking into places that give you nothing back. Silence patches those leaks. It keeps your energy exactly where it should stay, with you. Once you stop feeding distractions, that same energy naturally starts flowing toward growth instead. Details you used to miss suddenly stand out. Your thinking gets sharper. Decisions become easier because your mind isn't crowded anymore with everyone else's noise and opinions. And here's where most people get it wrong. They mistake silence for loneliness. They fill every quiet second with music, scrolling, chatter, anything to avoid sitting alone with their own thoughts. But growth only begins the moment distraction ends. Stick around, because what happens when you actually sit in that silence is where things get really interesting. When you finally sit quietly, without your phone, without background noise, without a conversation to hide behind, something strange happens. You start meeting yourself honestly, maybe for the first time in years. You come face to face with your fears, your habits, the things you're actually good at, and the weaknesses you've been avoiding. That kind of honesty is uncomfortable at first. Nobody enjoys staring at their own blind spots. But this discomfort is exactly where real change begins. You can't fix what you refuse to look at, and silence is what finally forces you to look. Nature already knows this lesson. A seed doesn't grow beneath the soil while asking for applause. It doesn't announce every new root it pushes out. It simply grows, quietly, without an audience. And during that invisible stretch underground, it's building the exact strength that will later hold up its branches, its leaves, its fruit. If that seed demanded recognition before its roots were ready, the very first storm would knock it flat. Human character works the same way. Those quiet seasons you spend building yourself in private are what create the strength that eventually becomes visible success. Here's something worth sitting with. People often confuse being loud with being powerful. Somewhere along the way, we started believing confidence has to be spoken out loud to count. But real confidence rarely needs to announce itself. It shows up in calm decisions, in patient actions, in steady emotions, in a presence that feels grounded rather than performed. A person who genuinely knows who they are doesn't feel an urgent need to convince anyone else of their worth. They just live it. Silence also sharpens something most people never develop: real observation. When you talk less, you notice more. Patterns in people start to reveal themselves. You start seeing who's being sincere and who's just chasing attention. You spot opportunities that other people miss simply because they're too busy talking to notice them. Listening becomes your greatest teacher, and every conversation gives you far more when you're actually absorbing it instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. This is also where emotional strength gets built, in those small, quiet pauses. Someone insults you, and instead of firing back instantly, you pause. That pause is powerful. Someone doubts what you're capable of, and instead of spending your energy defending yourself, you just keep improving. That restraint is strength. Someone completely misreads your intentions, and instead of chasing their approval, you stay true to your own values. That's discipline. And discipline is what creates real freedom. Silence isn't about shutting down communication. It's about making room for wisdom. It gives your emotions time to settle before your words ever leave your mouth. Think about it honestly. How many regrets in your life started with something you said too quickly? Now compare that to how many regrets came from choosing patience instead. Almost none, right? A calm mind consistently makes better decisions than an emotional one ever could. As you start protecting your energy this way, your priorities naturally sharpen. You spend less time trying to outdo other people and more time trying to outdo who you were yesterday. Progress stops being something you perform for an audience and becomes something deeply personal. You stop measuring your life by how loud the applause is and start measuring it by how much peace you actually feel. And that single shift changes everything, because your motivation is no longer something other people can control with their reactions. But what happens when people start misreading your silence completely? That's exactly where we're headed next. People will misunderstand your silence. That's simply guaranteed. Some will assume you've grown distant. Others will think you have nothing left to say. Let them believe whatever they want. Their assumptions don't shape your reality, and they never will. Your job was never to manage every opinion floating around about you. Your only real responsibility is managing your own mind. Every unnecessary explanation you give away is time stolen from becoming stronger. Every argument you choose to skip preserves emotional energy you can actually put toward learning, creating, training, or healing. Slowly, life starts feeling lighter, not because your problems vanished, but because you finally stopped carrying weight that was never yours to carry in the first place. Silence also teaches patience in a way almost nothing else can. Instead of demanding instant results, you learn to trust the slow process of daily improvement. Lasting change never arrives overnight. It builds gradually, piece by piece. Just like water shapes solid stone, not through force, but through steady consistency. Your disciplined daily actions quietly shape your future without needing a single round of applause along the way. Here's the interesting part. The quieter your ego gets, the louder your actions start speaking for themselves. Your work earns respect without you ever having to announce it. Your discipline becomes obvious without a single speech. Your peace becomes noticeable without you chasing anyone's attention for it. Eventually, people notice your growth. Not because you talked about it constantly, but because they can actually see it in how you carry yourself, how you handle setbacks, and the calm confidence you now have that no longer needs anyone else's approval to exist. Now, let's clear up something people get wrong all the time. Self-focus is often completely misunderstood. Plenty of people assume that focusing on yourself means becoming selfish, cold, or disconnected from everyone around you. The truth is actually the opposite. Someone who has genuinely mastered themselves becomes far more capable of helping others with wisdom, patience, and stability. Think about it simply. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot guide anyone else if your own mind is stuck in constant chaos. Before you try to change the world around you, you need to build order within yourself first. And that's genuinely hard right now because distractions are coming at you from every direction. People are constantly telling you how you should be living, what success is supposed to look like, and what choices you're supposed to make. Social media never stops showing you lives that seem more exciting, more successful, more put together than your own. If you spend all your time staring outward, comparing, scrolling, absorbing everyone else's highlight reel, you slowly lose sight of your own actual path. Self-focus is the discipline of pulling your attention back to what you can genuinely control: your thoughts, your actions, your habits, and your character. Here's a mistake so many people make. They think discipline equals punishment. They picture it as restriction, as suffering, as giving up everything that makes life enjoyable. But real discipline is actually freedom. It frees you from being controlled by fleeting emotions. It frees you from impulsive decisions you'll regret later. It frees you from relying on motivation that changes its mind every single day. Discipline lets you act according to your actual values instead of your temporary feelings in the moment. And that distinction changes everything about how you move through life. So how exactly does staying focused instead of scattered create the kind of unstoppable momentum that separates people who succeed from people who just talk about it? That's exactly what we're getting into next. Picture a river flowing steadily toward the ocean. If that river kept changing direction every few miles, it would never actually reach its destination. Instead, it would spread out into shallow, weak streams and lose all its force along the way. Human attention works exactly the same way. Every distraction pulls you further from your purpose. Every unnecessary comparison chips away at your determination. Every attempt to please absolutely everyone divides your energy into pieces too small to matter. But when your focus stays fixed on your own growth, your efforts start concentrating instead of scattering. And concentrated effort is what creates genuinely remarkable progress. Here's a trap so many people fall into. They wait until they feel motivated before they take any action at all. They tell themselves they'll start exercising once inspiration hits, or they'll study once they feel energetic, or they'll chase their dreams once confidence finally shows up on its own. But feelings are unreliable by nature. Some mornings you wake up ready to take on the world, and other mornings you don't feel like getting out of bed. If your progress depends entirely on your mood, it will always be inconsistent. And inconsistency is the enemy of real growth. Discipline teaches you something different. It teaches you to keep going regardless of how you feel in any given moment. It reminds you that your commitment runs deeper than your mood ever could. This is exactly why small daily habits carry more weight than the occasional burst of enthusiasm. One extraordinary day of effort can never replace months of showing up consistently. A tree doesn't grow all at once. It adds one ring at a time, year after year. Your character develops the exact same way, through choices you repeat over and over. Every morning you pick responsibility over comfort, you're strengthening your discipline. Every evening you choose learning over mindless distraction, you're strengthening your future. These choices might look tiny and insignificant in the moment they happen, but stacked together over time, they quietly shape the entire person you become. Self-focus also demands something a lot of people avoid: brutal honesty. It's always easier to blame your circumstances, difficult people, or bad luck for your struggles. But honest self-examination asks a completely different question. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what can I actually improve within myself? That one small shift completely transforms your mindset. Problems stop being excuses for frustration and start becoming genuine opportunities for growth. You can't control the weather, but you can absolutely prepare for the storm. You can't control how other people treat you, but you can fully control your own response. You can't control every challenge life throws at you, but you can build yourself strong enough to face every single one of them calmly. That's the real essence of inner discipline. It was never about controlling life around you. It's about controlling yourself. One of the biggest obstacles standing between you and real discipline is comparison. The moment you start measuring your progress against someone else's completely different journey, You create dissatisfaction that never needed to exist. Someone will always seem richer, stronger, smarter, or more accomplished than you. And if comparison becomes a habit, gratitude quietly disappears from your life. Your attention shifts away from your own progress and locks onto someone else's achievements instead. Instead of building your own future, you end up spending your energy just watching theirs unfold. So what actually happens when you finally let go of that comparison trap for good? That's exactly where we're headed next. The disciplined individual eventually understands something important. Comparison is genuinely meaningless because every single person is walking a completely unique path. Different experiences create different timelines for everyone. Some seeds bloom within weeks, while others need years before they finally bear fruit. And here's the key part. The value of a seed was never determined by how fast it grows, but by whether it eventually fulfills its purpose. Your responsibility was never to race against anyone else. Your only real responsibility is to keep growing at your own pace. Discipline also means learning to accept boredom, something modern life makes incredibly difficult. We live surrounded by constant stimulation. Entertainment is available every single second of every single day if you want it. Because of this, a lot of people have actually lost the ability to sit through simple, repetitive tasks without reaching for a distraction. But real mastery almost always develops during ordinary moments, repeated over and over again. The musician practices the same scales endlessly. The athlete repeats the same basic movements thousands of times. The craftsman perfects the simplest techniques again and again. Excellence is rarely built in exciting, dramatic moments. It's built through patient, unglamorous repetition. When you genuinely focus on yourself, your entire relationship with confidence starts to shift. Instead of relying on compliments from other people to feel good, your confidence starts coming from keeping the promises you make to yourself. Every workout you finish, every chapter you read, every skill you practice, every challenge you push through becomes proof that you're capable. And here's the beautiful part. This kind of confidence can't be taken away by criticism because it wasn't built on someone else's opinion. It was built on your own lived experience. There will always be people who misunderstand your commitment to bettering yourself. Some might call you distant simply because you're protecting your time. Others might question why you no longer show up for pointless conversations or unnecessary drama. Don't let their opinions pull you off course. Every meaningful goal in life requires some kind of sacrifice. Sometimes that sacrifice is comfort. Sometimes it's popularity. And sometimes it's the approval of people who simply don't understand your vision. And honestly, that's completely fine. Inner discipline also teaches you real patience. Results almost never show up as quickly as your effort deserves. This is exactly why so many people give up on their goals too soon. They expect immediate rewards. They plant a seed and get discouraged when fruit doesn't appear the very next morning. But nature never rushes its own process, and neither should you. Every season serves its purpose. Growth that develops slowly usually ends up being the strongest, simply because its foundation is genuinely secure. When setbacks happen, and they will, discipline is what stops that discouragement from turning into full defeat. Instead of treating failure as some kind of ending, you start treating it as information. Every mistake reveals something you can improve. Every obstacle you face builds resilience you didn't have before. Every challenge teaches wisdom that comfort simply never could. The disciplined mind eventually stops asking why life feels difficult, and instead starts asking what exactly this difficulty is trying to teach. And once your self-focus deepens to this level, something remarkable happens to your emotional stability too. Praise stops inflating your ego, and criticism stops shaking your confidence. So what does that kind of unshakable inner stability actually look like day to day? Let's get into that next. Once you reach this level of self-focus, you become anchored in your own principles instead of bouncing around based on other people's reactions. Your peace stops depending on circumstances and starts depending on your character instead. This is what real freedom actually feels like, because nothing outside of you has the power to determine your inner state anymore. Over time, people around you start noticing the change. They see more patience in how you act, more calmness in how you make decisions, more consistency in your daily habits. They start wondering what shifted. The answer is simple. You stopped chasing distractions and started mastering yourself instead. You stopped looking for shortcuts and embraced daily discipline. You stopped trying to control the world around you and started controlling your own mind. That quiet, steady commitment becomes the actual foundation that lasting success, peace, and wisdom get built on. Now let's talk about one of the biggest sources of suffering most people never name out loud. The desire to be accepted by absolutely everyone. From a young age, so many of us are trained to chase approval. We learn to behave in ways that earn praise, avoid criticism, and satisfy whatever expectations other people have for us. Wanting appreciation is completely natural. But living for validation slowly turns into a prison. The moment your happiness depends entirely on someone else's opinion, you hand over control of your own peace to them. Here's the thing, though. Every person you meet sees the world through the lens of their own experiences. Their opinions are shaped by their own upbringing, their own beliefs, their own fears, their own successes and disappointments. Which means no matter how sincere your intentions actually are, someone out there will misunderstand you. No matter how hard you work, someone will insist it wasn't enough. No matter how kind you become, someone will still find a reason to criticize you. If you spend your entire life trying to satisfy every single voice around you, you will eventually lose your own voice completely. This need for validation usually starts small and quiet. It shows up in tiny decisions. You hesitate before speaking because you're worried about what people might think. You put off your own dreams because someone once told you they were unrealistic. You put on a mask just to fit into spaces where your real self doesn't feel welcome. Slowly, piece by piece, you trade authenticity for acceptance, convincing yourself that approval will eventually bring happiness. But the more you chase it, the further real peace seems to drift away from you. Picture carrying a mirror everywhere you go. Every few minutes, you stop to check whether your reflection looks acceptable enough. Eventually, you become so consumed with that mirror that you completely forget to look at the actual path beneath your feet. Chasing validation works exactly the same way. Your attention shifts away from actually living your life and instead becomes fixed on constantly monitoring how other people perceive you. Instead of asking whether your actions line up with your own values, you start asking whether people will approve of them instead. And that's a completely different, much smaller life to live. So how exactly do you break free from a mirror you've been staring into your entire life? What does it actually take to build your identity on something more solid than public opinion? That's exactly where we're headed in the final part. Wisdom teaches a completely different approach. Instead of building your identity on public opinion, build it on personal integrity instead. Integrity simply means your actions stay consistent, whether people are watching you or not. It means doing what's right, even when no applause follows. It means making decisions based on principle, not popularity. And here's something worth remembering. The strongest individuals throughout history were rarely understood in the early stages of their journey. History is full of people who faced doubt, criticism, and rejection long before their contributions were ever recognized. If they had abandoned their purpose just to satisfy other people's opinions, their greatest achievements would never have existed at all. Real progress often requires walking a path that very few people understand at the time. When you finally stop seeking validation, something remarkable actually happens. Your decisions become clearer almost immediately. You stop wasting hours explaining yourself to people who already decided not to understand you. You stop entering arguments just to protect your image. Instead, your energy flows into meaningful action. Your life becomes quieter on the outside, yet your progress becomes far greater underneath. So many people confuse explanation with strength. They believe every accusation deserves a defense, and every misunderstanding needs clarification. But real wisdom understands something important. Some minds are already committed to misunderstanding you, no matter what you say. No amount of explaining will change someone who's already reached their conclusion. Continuing to argue only drains your emotional energy while producing almost no actual change. Silence often communicates far more than endless words ever could. There's also genuine freedom in accepting that you cannot control other people's opinions. Just as you can't command the wind to change direction, you can't force every person to think well of you. Some people will admire you. Others will criticize you. Some will completely misread your intentions, but those reactions belong to them, not to you. The moment you truly accept this, an enormous weight lifts off your shoulders. Chasing validation creates emotional dependence, where compliments make you feel valuable and criticism makes you question your entire worth. Your emotions start rising and falling based on someone else's words instead of your own reality. Real confidence grows differently, through self-respect earned by actually living according to your own principles. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens that confidence. Every difficult decision made with integrity reinforces your self-respect. This kind of confidence can't be handed to you by anyone else, which means it can never be taken away either. Instead of competing for recognition, compete for self-mastery instead. Ask yourself honestly, are you more patient than you were yesterday? More disciplined? More compassionate? More resilient? These are the questions that direct your attention inward, which is exactly where lasting transformation actually happens. External recognition may show up, or it may not. But internal growth stays entirely within your control, always. When your purpose becomes stronger than your desire to be liked, real courage naturally grows. You start speaking truthfully instead of saying whatever people want to hear. You make decisions based on wisdom instead of popularity. You stay calm when others disagree, because disagreement no longer threatens who you are. The approval you've spent years chasing was always temporary. Today's praise can quietly become tomorrow's criticism. But inner character develops slowly, and it endures. Build your life on what actually lasts. The moment you stop asking the world for permission to be yourself, you start living with quiet confidence and real freedom. If this gave you something to think about, hit subscribe, drop a comment with your biggest takeaway, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today.